On November the 30th, 2018, the notice of this meeting of the Upper Township Committee was posted on the official Township Bulletin Board mailed to the Cape May County Gazette, the Atlantic City Press, the Ocean City Sentinel, Ledger, the Herald Times, and filed with the Township Clerk. Tonight's meeting is being video recorded up until the closed session portion of this meeting and will be available on UTTV Channel 97 and on the Upper Township website. I hereby direct that this announcement made a part of the minutes of this meeting. I would ask all to rise for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Barbara, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mr. Collins?
Here.
Mr. Corson?
Present.
Mr. Young?
Here.
Mayor Palumbo?
Here.
All members present.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes, both open and closed, from November 19th, 2018? So make a motion. Let's see, we had some people absent, so I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, is there any corrections, deletions, omissions that anyone's aware of? Hearing none. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Abstain.
Abstain. Mr. Young?
Abstain.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried with 3 in favor.
I think before we do the report from the governing bodies, we have a presentation from the Cape May County Mosquito Control Commission. We'll let, we have freeholder Jeff Pearson with us, if you would introduce your representative from the commission, and we'll watch a presentation on the Asian tiger mosquito.
Mayor, if I could just interject, the presentation probably will not display well on the video, on the TV, so what I'll do is I'll post the presentation PowerPoint on the Township website, so if anybody wants to look at the slides, make that available, I can put that on the Township's website. So
Okay.
they can see it.
I'm right in the line of fire, so I am going to move. You have the slides on your...
Mayor and committee, it's my pleasure to introduce this young man. As freeholder in charge of the mosquito department, and as one of several of my departments, I'd like to say that my departments are very proactive, and especially this one here. Dr. Peter Bosak is in charge of the mosquito department, and he's way out on the leading edge. This summer I had the opportunity to take a ride in a helicopter with this bright young pilot. God, I guess, what's he, 26 years old, I think, and he's a fantastic pilot. He only flies in the summer for us, and we hope we get him back next year. But just to go around the county and see all the spots where these young people go out and collect samples and go out and do treatments, etc., for all these invading species of mosquitoes, etc. It's amazing. From the sky, it's really great. And I also had a chance to take a look at some of our bridges and all the issues there, especially the one between Townsend and the Townsend Inlet Bridge down to Sea Isle and Avalon, which we're having so much problem with. So having said that, I would like to just make one public announcement, is that on 10 December, I'm holding a freeholder, I guess you want to call it donuts and coffee with the freeholders. And I extend that invitation to the mayor and any other members of the committee that would like to participate. It's going to be right here in Marmora at 10 o'clock on the 10th, or excuse me, 9 o'clock on the 10th at Dunkin' Donuts. So without further ado, let me introduce Kyle. He's just come on board here in April. He's an entomologist by trade. He's a bright young kid. He presented this just recently down in Lower Township, and I said, hey, how about coming up here? And we'll take this show on the road to all the county representatives, because I know that we had some difficulties with mosquitoes. I had people hollering at me this year that there were a lot of problems up here in the north end, and perhaps Kyle will be able to fill you in on what the issue is there. So, Kyle, it's all yours.
Thank you, Freeholder Pearson. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone here tonight. I know time is short. I'd like to do a real quick overview for those of you who aren't familiar with what the Department of Mosquito Control does. We operate under a practice known as integrated pest management, which relies heavily on surveillance, as opposed to the old style of mosquito control and pest control in general, where it was a lot of preventative spraying, the old times when you would have DEET trucks fogging the streets every night and day. We have dozens of permanent mosquito traps in the county. We're constantly we take in usually over 1,000 mosquitoes a day, sometimes thousands of mosquitoes a day. Some of those we take in dead just as a study of populations, what's out there, and then a lot of them we take in and we actually test for virus in our own lab. We're the only Department of Mosquito Control or Mosquito Commission in the state of New Jersey that has our own viral testing lab, which we're really proud of. And so we constantly have an idea of what's going on where with mosquitoes in the county and base all of our treatment decisions on that. With that being said, sometimes things fall through the cracks. We have almost 60,000 acres of salt marsh in the county. Most of our municipalities are majority wetland. And I think everyone in Upper Township was familiar with the late season explosion of mosquitoes this year. What we think happened was, we know it was a species called the salt marsh mosquito. It's the species that basically built mosquito control in the country and in the state. It's an extremely aggressive biting mosquito that is produced from the high salt marsh areas where the salt hay grows in the salt marshes, and it bites throughout the day and night. It can fly up to 20 miles a day, and when they bloom or the adults emerge, they all sort of do it at the same time. And we think what happened was over at the wildlife management area, one or two of the impoundments were flooded they can manually control the water level in the impoundments, and there seemed to be a little bit of a mistake or a miscommunication with one of them being flooded at a really bad time. And by the time we saw the adults in our traps, they were already up and out. And so I apologize to the northern part of the county. I know we were we were here all day, every day. It was a cloud of mosquitoes, and we got hundreds of calls, over a lot of calls, just in that 2 or 3 week span where it was really unbearable. And we did everything we could, and now we know moving forward in the future we have a lot more communication with Fish and Wildlife about their practices over there and how they tie into ours and the rest of the county. Now that's one that we can control with our own surveillance and our own treatments in the salt marshes. We're able to treat areas of the salt marsh that we inspect and find mosquito larvae in. The one that I'd like to present on the slide tonight is one that when we go to inspect people's properties, I would say sometimes close to 80%, depending on the municipality, but 50 to 80% of the properties we inspect are producing this mosquito in a huge amount. This is the Asian tiger mosquito, Aedes albopictus. It first showed up in Cape May County in 2012, so it's a relatively new arrival from Japan. And this is a daytime active mosquito. Now, when we go out and spray for adult mosquitoes, if there's a big adult mosquito problem, we're only really able to do that usually between the hours of 7 p.m. to midnight for several reasons. One being we have less people out and about, and also you have less of an impact on some of the pollinating insects like bees and butterflies that would be out flying around that could be affected by the spray. This one, when we have a problem with this, we are usually unable to effectively spray for it. And it can carry disease. It's been known to carry West Nile virus. It can carry dog heartworm, several other diseases that you wouldn't see in New Jersey, but it's still capable of carrying. And if we were to one day end up with a large population of its close relative, it is also capable of being a vector for Zika virus. Luckily, we do not have the mosquito that you need to make that link, but we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. This mosquito, the Asian tiger mosquito, has a very quick turnaround from egg to adult. 7 days, usually at most. It can do it in less than that. And so the female mosquito lays its egg, this one usually inside of a container that can hold water. When that container fills up with water, it turns into a larva, feeds on any bacteria that are in there, which if it's outside, it's in there. Quick becomes a pupa and then an adult. And the females then seek a blood meal from you and I. Next slide.
So they actually lay their egg in a dry container?
Yeah, so what you can see here, anything that's usually capable of holding water or has a little bit of water in it or is shown that has residue of being wet and dry, they'll lay their egg in there. So anything that, like trash can lids, we have a half-empty fountain there, a rain barrel that's popular among some people, gardeners, bird baths, and then you have trash. That's a takeout container. And their natural habitat in Japan is tree holes that hold water. So we do find them in tree holes. We have our own species of mosquitoes that lay their eggs in tree holes, but these we mostly find in artificial containers. If you could hit the next slide. As well as these two, when we go on an inspection to a property, we can find bird baths and trash can lids and trash, and we can dump things out, and we can treat rain barrels and small ponds, things that we can't dump. But we're usually not carrying around ladders to check clogged gutters, and sometimes it's hard to get into someone's septic tank. And so that's a septic tank lid there that seems to be failing to seal off the tank, and you would be surprised how often you see that in someone's yard, especially older septic systems with the cement lids and tank openings. It's usually, when you see it, it's a revolving door of mosquitoes, and sometimes that's up to 900 gallons of water. It's very hard to treat with the little bit. I mean, we can do it, but it takes a lot, and it's hard to find. You can hit the next. So something that we have put together here, I have copies of this that can hand it out. I can hand it to everyone. This is basically just a checklist that would be a very simple thing to distribute in some way. We usually hand something like this over to residents when we are in touch with them, but it's also something that could be easily stuffed into an envelope and mailed out. Next slide. And it can sort of show that there is a way that not only removing the water, but also treating it with some of these that you may have seen. These are mosquito dunks. It's called BTI. It's what we actually use in a granular form from our helicopter and from backpack blowers, but you're able to buy it at most hardware stores in a little compressed puck. And you put one of these in a bird bath or in a rain barrel, or even just a piece of it, depending on the size of the container, and it will kill any larvae that are in there for anywhere from 30 to 60 days, usually until the whole thing's dissolved. And so I think that's pretty much it for the visuals. Yeah. So that's basically all on the Asian tiger mosquito. I know that it's a problem in a lot of smaller residential areas. A lot of parts of Upper Township are more widespread. But anywhere that you have two families or two residences within 500 feet of the other, if one person is creating a mosquito problem, with this species,
Share with
then
your neighbor.
the other is feeling the burn of it. So if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, I have one question. Do you test, like, what eggs may have been laid prior to, like fall, summer, fall, that would hatch in the spring, or are these?
The eggs are very hard to find. They're very, very small. So we have done that. I know the department has done that in the past. What we do is we have a team of anywhere from 4 to 6 inspectors at a time that have thousands, it's probably 2,000 or 3,000 sites in the county that we know are bad for larval mosquitoes. And so beginning in the early spring, before anything even gets bad, we're testing each one of those sites. We're looking for mosquito larvae at each one of those sites at least once a week and treating it if we find them. There's really not much on the market to eliminate the eggs outside of putting bleach or something really caustic on it. So the way that this BTI that we use for the larval control works is that the larvae actually eat it and it disrupts their digestive system, basically makes them implode. And it's great because it really only affects mosquito larvae, so anything else living in the water isn't affected by it. They actually use it in drinking water in some countries.
Okay, so you have an inventory of the typical sites where the mosquitoes usually breed. And how do you update that?
We update that pretty regularly throughout the season. We have some that historically have been terrible, and I think all season we're finding new spots. I could name a few. I mean, one that we're going to add in, I can't think of one in Upper Township right now, but I know, what's on my head right now is Acorn Campground. It became a big problem this season, and it actually ended up coming from a national wildlife refuge. So we added a site in that area to the list. But I think this season we probably added about 25 new sites to the list, and then took some off as well, because as we work throughout the winter, a lot of our work in the winter is water management and actually eliminating the possibility for these sites to collect water. So whether that's cleaning a ditch or fixing up a retention basin, digging a new ditch, cleaning out pipes that clog up, that's what our inspector crew does all winter.
So just one final question. So you have the ability to spray on federal property, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and state property, or are you limited where you can spray?
We are very limited where we can spray. For adults and for larvae, we are currently in conversation with U.S. Fish and Wildlife to get some access and some treatment rights to the National Wildlife Refuge system. That usually, unless it's a severe public health crisis, there usually is no adult spraying on wildlife refuges. But there are instances where there's larval control. I know Ocean County and Atlantic County work with U.S. Fish and Wildlife to do the refuge up in Brigantine, Forsyth. And so I'm speaking with Heidi Hanlon now, who is putting together a compatibility determination for what we would be using on the refuge and if it would fit their goals. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife's position historically has been that mosquitoes are wildlife and they're an integral part of any refuge system. And so it's not until you see severe economic impact or human health impact that you really need to step in and say, there's another way around this. And that's what we saw this year, was areas in Green Creek, a campground especially, losing long-time residents and actually losing a lot of revenue because of a mosquito problem that they couldn't control and we weren't legally allowed to control.
Okay,
The case of Tuckahoe Wildlife Management Area, though, we are able to treat that if we know it's a problem. We always have to know that something's there. We can never just go and spray or treat water without knowing that there are mosquitoes there. But we do have access to it, and we do have open communication at all times throughout the season with them. So it's much easier on a state property.
You're pretty much telling us what happened this year is not going to happen next year.
If I have anything to do with it, it's not going to happen again.
But it still was, if it was, you know, the McNamara Game Reserve or something, then.
They were the host of the mosquitoes, yes.
Yeah.
So, but you have the ability to go into that area? I know you just said you.
Yes, yeah. And they were the epicenter of it. So the people who worked there, they, as bad as everyone else got it, they got it almost worse. And so once it started, we were there actually spraying on the preserve for adults and scouring the area for anywhere that the larvae
The
could
bell was
come.
already rung though.
Yeah, that's one of the tricks with adult spraying. Especially a mosquito that can fly 20 miles a day. They're kind of spread out at that point. But yeah, we're aware of where we believe it came from, and that's, feel pretty comfortable with
Now,
that.
you're the Cape County, but they're,
Atlantic County as well, yeah.
yeah, they have the impoundments over there.
Yeah, so the superintendent of Atlantic County got just as many calls as we did, from Corbin City all the way up to Estelle Manor and Mays Landing. And we are very fortunate compared to them. We have a lot more
Resources.
personnel, resources, equipment, and we're able to do a lot more treatments. But they employ or deploy the state air spray program to treat for larvae, so they would be treating as well. We do believe it came from the Cape May County side, though.
Okay,
Yeah.
very informative, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. They actually handed. Thank you. Living through all the campgrounds and all that. They do a good job.
So we'll jump back to the agenda, and I'll turn to Mr. Morgan. Do you have anything for us?
Yes, good evening, Mayor, committee members. Just a few things. Committee accepted a grant package back in May of this year, May 14th specifically, by resolution. It was part of our EMAA, Emergency Management Assistance, for 2017. Barb and I, at that time, completed a full package for this grant. This grant was a $10,000 grant. And as of last week, we completed the necessary paperwork and submitted it to New Jersey EM Grants system for reimbursement, requesting reimbursement for that $10,000. So that will complete the process, and soon we should have an electronic funding for that amount in our account. Hopefully, maybe even over the next couple of weeks. So they're getting faster with their submission process. We've already, as you know, submitted our 2018 package. So hopefully, and maybe by the first quarter of 2019, we may have the reimbursement process done for that money as well. I wanted to acknowledge Committeeman Young for his direction. About a week ago, we sat in a meeting and direction as far as some of the things you see here today outside our Public Works Department. Roy Schoen and his men and women, and then also Barb Young with her clerk's office. They trimmed up all of our bushes out front. They did an excellent job, I think, and in all the decorations and whatnot that have been put up here. So I just wanted to thank everybody that was involved in that process, making this all come together this evening. Just wanted to update on leaf collection. As of today, Oak Forest, Chadwin and Gladwin, the streets there have been completed. As far as leaf pickup is concerned, Hope Corson has also been completed, and they will be moving north starting tomorrow along the east side of Route 9 to Harry's Court. Some of you may have noticed that signs have been out there along both Stagecoach and Route 9 indicating the next areas that will be collected. And that, of course, will continue. And I might add that there was a little bit of a delay at the very beginning of the normal leaf collection process, the season, if you will. And that was obviously because it took a little bit longer because of the overall warmth that we had at the beginning of the fall season for the leaves to fall. So we kind of stayed fast to our bulk, or to our, excuse me, our brush collection. And we were continued with that, and then we eventually rolled into the leaf collection, which we are now, and it'll continue through the end of December. So just an update on that. And continue to look to our Township website, specifically the calendar of events, because posted every day is what we've done and then what we will be moving toward over the next several weeks. The last thing I have is, beginning back in the beginning of July, committee by resolution adopted the purchase of a CAD, computer-aided dispatch system called InfoShare for Upper Township. This system would not only provide CAD software as a backup to our present 911 dispatch center, which is Ocean City, but it will also connect us to the new Cape May County Regional Communications Center. Basically, as of this past Friday, I'm happy to report that all the software has been installed and the proper connections to the Cape May County Regional Communications Center network has been completed. Starting this coming Thursday, December 6th, Paul and I will be working with representatives from CSI. They're the vendors that provided us with the software to start a training schedule for both EMS employees who have existing dispatch training, and also we will be training Ocean City dispatchers on the InfoShare CAD system. And the reason for that is should there ever be a time that Ocean City Dispatch needs to evacuate for a major disaster or anything, that Upper Township Communication Center would be the backup, and that's part of our agreement, as you know. And that is all I have for you.
Okay. Barbara,
Report, sir.
thank you again for all your help this evening.
My pleasure.
I think it was well attended, and again, as Scott acknowledged, the Public Works Department and all they've done outside really looks great, and it was a great turnout tonight, so thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing at this time, but we do have a number of items for a closed session.
Paul?
Thank you. I just wanted to update the committee. Got a call this afternoon that our contractor that we weren't able to finish all the dune fence installation in the spring because of the birding restriction. He's now coming back and he'll be heading out this week to complete the dune fence installation over in Strathmere. So we'll have the whole beach dune fenced for the season. I've also requested,
Wait, before you do that, talk to me about, I thought I saw an email from you that said that you've gotten some approval for some beach replenishment?
Yes. We got good news. The Army Corps of Engineers has appropriated $12 million for the Ludlow Island, Southern Ocean City projects, the three communities, Southern Ocean City, Strathmere, section of Upper Township, and Sea City have all been appropriated $12 million for the project. They haven't determined, they did surveys in this past summer, and they're going to supplement some of those areas with the damage that we've seen in the north end of the Strathmere. But they'll be determining over the next several months of how they're going to put the project together and how much sand Strathmere actually would be receiving out of that $12 million.
And will we need the 25% funding?
We're going to need,
Matching.
how the funding is, it's 50% federal and 50% local and state, and then out of that 50%, we would pay 25% out of the 50%. So it could be about maybe a little bit over $1 million, depending on, how much if we took that 12 million, divided it by 3, it could be upwards of $1 million that we would need to help fund the next Beachville project. But, until they come back to us with how much sand we're getting and do their preliminary estimates,
Actually, most of it's on the state park side. So we would only pay 50% of ours.
We're only gonna pay 25% of corrective art.
Yes.
Yes,
The state park we don't pay.
right.
And then in anticipation, the Army Corps is supposed to come back with their own replenishment, what, after 5 years, right? From
Well,
the initial one?
Well, the project was broken down into 2 renourishment cycles. The southern end of Ocean City was on a 3-year cycle. Upper Township, CI were on a 5-year cycle. So this is the 3rd year of that cycle. However, they're looking at the funding that the Army Corps has received from Congress is for the project. So they're going to look at any hotspot areas that need to be addressed. So our northern end is going to probably get addressed. I don't think that they would probably put sand, south of Vincent. I don't know if there's a real need based on the template, to go down towards Hawthorne Avenue and Whale Beach area. So, they'll look at everything, but I think most of what we're going to use is going to be up in the northern end.
Okay, that's good news.
And the timing of that would most likely look at probably fall of next year. The other quandary that the Bureau of Coastal Engineering is having is there's about, not only is this project been authorized, but also the northern part of Ocean City, as well as Avalon and Stone Harbor, not to mention all of the other, I'll say northern communities that have gotten awarded. So they're also trying to figure out the timing of all these projects to find out, is there enough equipment in the world essentially that could handle the amount of beach fills and how they're going to package these projects together.
So actually, the more the merrier when it comes to staging costs, right? So we need barges, and to move them is really a big expense that adds to the project. But if there's more of the communities that are involved, will be less of expense, and we'll get more sand
Yes.
than we will be paying for staging of the barge that has to, drill the sand and bring it up.
Correct, yeah. If they don't have to move that dredge that far, those mobilization costs, that definitely means more sand that's available to spend, to put back on the beach. So that's the good news for that. And then the last thing I had was, I put 3 draft letters on the SkyDrive for you to take a look at. As you recall, I reported about a month ago that we did not receive that grant through through HUD for the flood mitigation projects. However, we've had some discussions with some lobbyists and the Army Corps of Engineers, and they may be able to fund those projects and do that research and provide that same amounts, the same study information. However, we need the authorization to have the mayor sign these letters of support to have these projects included in an Army Corps project. So
And based on the email that I recall that you sent, the funding was supposed to come from Army Corps, right?
correct, yeah. This is not funding that the township. There's no dollars that the township would have to put in. At most, it would be maybe some matching funds as far as my time and work effort to help partner and assist in working with the project.
Well, I think it's a no-brainer.
That's exactly how I responded to Paul on that. Okay,
So we just need a.
you're chock full of good news today.
So I'd like
motion to authorize.
I'd like to make that in the form of a motion. We authorize Paul Dietrich, or the mayor, to sign a letter that Paul Dietrich's prepared to pursue funding for the berm on the bay side of the.
Well, there's 3
Yeah.
different little projects
Yeah.
that all have different scope and capacity.
Yeah.
Second. Any further discussion? Let's call the roll, please.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corsi?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Coleman?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Thank you, that's all I had this evening.
All right, Barbara, do you have anything for us this evening?
I have nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Committeeman Coggins,
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Committeeman Young.
Just a couple things I want to touch base on. I want to get together, Scott, and figure out what we're going to do with the Seventh-day Adventist Church as far as how we're going to utilize that, what we're going to clear. We've had a problem with parking at that end of the park with all the kindergarten and first grade soccer. So when I walked it the other day, and if we can figure out how to get access as a parking lot in the field area, that we don't have to asphalt it or stone it, just, make it open parking for that age group. That's one of the things. And I haven't been in the building for quite a while, so I'd like to get down there with a key and maybe meet you and Roy down there, and come up with a game plan of what we think we can use it for. And I know we have some groups that are using the community center, the Red Hat Singers or whatever they are. It seems always maybe be stumbling with wrestling. Might be a perfect spot to put them down there, smaller groups like that we could start utilizing it and get it up and running.
Is the building winterized now, or?
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
it's been winterized
Okay.
from the prior.
All right.
So it's ours now, the septic thing and everything's all taken?
It's all done.
There's new septic. been installed.
And then, Paul, do you have a survey of the property? I want to see how far, what we have out towards Sunset, how big of an area we have there.
You don't, there's not much, it's just a flag lot.
Okay. So I just want to see what we had, so maybe we could stake it out as far as making, some additional parking, which, like I said, is really needed. So, we had a discussion the other day also with John Adams about the Babe Ruth field at Codwell. We had talked about leaving it and having just an extra field with lights on, and in further review of it, we've decided to remove the Babe Ruth field completely, take down everything there. We can utilize all the infield mix to raise all of our infields this year, and hopefully get them up another inch, inch and a half, and be able to get more of a crown to help the standing water issue we have there.
Based on a report I read this morning, some of that has been completed.
Okay. And that area will become more practice area, that kind of stuff for any other sports that are at Codwell. I had a couple phone calls this week and last week with the sanctuary situation with the state of New Jersey. And I guess it was just passed the other day. And I know they refer me to the Jackson Township letter they sent to the state in opposition to it. And it seems to be an interest for maybe the township should take a position on that also, just to let the state know if we're opposed to it or if we're not. They've limited the police and everybody as far as what they can do with it. And my understanding is there's about 7 or 8 municipalities that are for the letters. So just something I wanted to throw out there, based on the feedback I've been getting from some of the people in the township. Whether we should look into it and let Murphy know that we're, not happy with his adoption here this past week. So that's why I wanted to throw it out to the committee, for you to think about it and see if it's something we should take a look at. So, other than that, I'm done.
Deputy Mayor Barr,
Nothing to report, sir.
Committeeman Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one thing real quick, since my last time here, I have become a grandfather, so.
Congratulations.
We actually congratulate you with the last meeting.
It's the first grandchild, so. And
Congratulations.
believe it or not, I got a second one on the way, but that's another story.
Oh, boy.
We have twins due December 10th, so.
There you go.
They come quick. I have 5 of them, so, and love them all.
I'm the only one up here with a great-grandchild.
Yeah, you are, and you stay that way for a while.
That means you're pretty old, huh?
Yeah,
That's all I have, Mr.
pretty
Mayor.
much, yeah.
I don't have anything else, to add to the discussion, only that, we've talked a little bit, we had the tree lighting tonight, and I just want to reiterate, and mainly be to not only the audience, but those that may be viewing this, that, the Township Committee would like to wish everyone a very happy Christmas and Hanukkah and holiday season. But more importantly, for those individuals that are less fortunate, don't forget about them. When you're out shopping, grab an extra toy and donate it to Toys for Tots, whatever organization you see fit. And then also there's a number of our food banks. A lot of the churches throughout the township are collecting food for individuals so that they can enjoy a Christmas dinner as well. So, I just encourage everyone, if you can do it, please do so. And I'm sure it'll be greatly appreciated by those that, are struggling with it this year. So, thank you.
Very good. All right, item number 2 under resolutions, authorizing the disposal of personal property with no market value.
Motion to authorize.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Plumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 3, setting the date and time of the 2019 reorganization meeting of the Township of Upper, and that would be on Friday, January 4th at 6 p.m.
Move the resolution?
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Plumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 4, accepting the 2019 solid waste collection rules and regulations resident information packet pursuant to Chapter 24 of the revised general ordinances of Upper Township.
Move the resolution?
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 5, authorizing a refund of land sale costs to Ratoski and Trainer Incorporated.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. 6, adopting revisions to the Upper Township Supervisor's Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual and Employee Handbook.
Move the resolution?
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. 7, authorizing the purchase of certain items from the 2018 Capital Improvement Bond Ordinance in the amount of $140,854.
Motion to authorize.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. 8, authorizing the release of $3,398.17 in surplus from the Township of Upper's share of the aggregate loss contingency fund.
Motion to authorize.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. 9, under ordinances, public hearing and final adoption of ordinance number 18, an ordinance amending revised general ordinance, Chapter 28, construction of bulkheads of the Code of Upper Township.
Before I open it up to the public, Paul, if you would just summarize, I believe it's the Township Committee's understanding that this ordinance will now require that any construction, reconstruction, repair, renovation, that the new height is 8 foot?
It's 8 foot, going from 7 up to 8, as well as there's a requirement that all bulkheads that do not meet that standard will have to raise it to that standard within 10 years.
The only proviso is that it still maintains the language that is in there currently. If your bulkhead is deteriorated to the point where it's failing, you're going to have to raise it and rebuild it to current standards.
So this pertains to new construction, to any type of reconstruction that's taking place at the building?
Or
on site?
dilapidated stuff.
Dilapidated bulkhead, and if none of that occurs, it still has to be repaired and changed within after 10 years, or before 10 years are up, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's what we discussed. We had a lot of discussions about it. So unless anyone else in the Township Committee has anything to say, I'm going to open it up to the public.
If I could, Mayor, I just would want to note that this winter season, and that's usually when bulkheads get repaired or replaced, I already have 3 that have submitted bulkhead replacements to Elevation E.
Okay, great.
It's already working.
So this is culminating from, we've had a few meetings over with some of the Strathmere residents. We had a long discussion back here, talked to the planning board and went forward. So is anyone in the public here to address this ordinance? Yes, come up and state your name, your address.
Ted Kingston, Strathmere. I endorse this ordinance. This is a good idea. It's good for the protection of Strathmere, and thank you for introducing this ordinance.
Okay. Anyone else?
The only thing I want to add before we vote on it is that we actually, it applies to us. Our street ends we need to address. There's a couple of them that are bad.
We have two in the 2018 bond ordinance.
Yes.
And I've got 2 road projects I'm finishing up design, and probably in the new year I'll be looking to get authorization to get the surveys done and prepare the permits and plans.
Are any of the bulkheads?
I haven't, since it just, I would really like to close the public portions as we, talk back and forth. So if there is anyone else in the public that's going to address, this ordinance, then I'm going to close the public portion and I'll come back here for some final discussion.
If any of the bulkheads that are getting replaced this year are in close proximity of ours, we should try to piggyback it. And, especially if it's one of our neighbors, that's a no-brainer.
None of them are our neighbors.
Yes, but if we could save mobilization and maybe they could bid on multiple bulkheads, it might drive the cost down for them and us.
Is there any other discussion? All right, hearing none, would someone like to make a motion for adoption?
I'd like to make a motion, we adopt ordinance number 18 of 2018.
Second. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Plumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Thank you, Paul, for your work. Thank you, Dan, for your inputs, and thank you to the residents of Strathmere that voiced their opinion. See, we do listen. All right, we have one, let's see. What do we have left? Someone wants to make a motion to pay the bills?
I hereby move that all claims submitted for payment at this meeting be approved and then incorporated into the full minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Plumbo?
Yes. There's one report from the municipal departments, MUA report, that will be available upon request tomorrow at the clerk's office, but I'll make a motion to accept that report.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Plumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
So at this time, we're going to go back to the public. We've reached the public comment portion of the meeting. If anyone would like to address the Township Committee, now's the time to do so. I would ask that you come to the podium and state your name and your address and your reason for addressing the Township Committee. It appears that there's no one that has anything of concerns today. So hearing no public comment, I'll close the public comment portion and entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I hereby move that a resolution be incorporated into the minutes authorizing the Township Committee to enter into an executive session for the following matters pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. The matters are personnel, potential litigation with Whippoorwill Campground, litigation, Holt versus Upper Township Zoning Board of Adjustment, Rotimi Owa on behalf of AADARI versus Upper, contract negotiation for the assignment of tax lien, Block 642, Lot 114, for shared services with Ocean City for 9/11 dispatch, for shared services with Cape May County Fleet Maintenances, and for contract negotiations for special legal counsel. I also include in my motion the estimated time and the circumstances under which the discussion in closed session can be disclosed to the public as follows. It is anticipated that the matters discussed in closed session may be disclosed to the public upon the determination of the Township Committee that the public interest will no longer be served by such confidentiality. With respect to employment and personnel matters, such discussions will be made public if and when formal action is taken, or when the individuals involved consent that it can be made public. With respect to contract negotiations, such matters will be made public when negotiations have ceased and there is no longer a reason for confidentiality. With respect to litigation matters, such discussions will be made public when litigation is complete and the applicable appeal period has expired.
Second, longest motion ever.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Plumbo?
Yes,
Motion is carried.
thank you. Thank you for bringing.
We did pass a resolution last month to make it safe for parking and striping.
You did?
Fantastic.
So, next.
Were you able to make the meeting with the Friolas and Dunkin' Donuts?
Thank you, Mike.
Tuesday?
You trying to tell me something?
Well,
Yeah, I just
it was supposed to be...
No, I think it was a cut against what I used to do for a living. That you think that I'm familiar with.